Please welcome Al Franken.
You know what the number one cause of death in the United States is right now? Tucker Carlson. He did a story last night about a Kearney, Nebraska man who was vaccinated on Tuesday at 12:49 p.m. and was dead exactly 12 hours later. Now, what he didn't tell you is that the man's car was hit by a train.
Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Capehart, opinion writer for the Washington Post. Welcome to the Capehart podcast on Washington Post Live. As I said, I am Jonathan Capehart. My guest today was made famous by his role as a writer and performer on Saturday Night Live for 3 decades. But he turned his political activism into a political career, serving as a United States Senator from the great state of Minnesota for 10 years. It is his time in that august chamber that provides the comedic fodder for the only former U.S. Senator currently on tour. He is Al Franken. Senator Franken, welcome to Capehart on Washington Post Live.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for inviting me.
And a reminder to our audience, we want you to join our conversation, so please tweet your questions and comments to the handle Post Live. So, Senator Franken, as I do with anyone who has had the guts to run for elective office and ask people to vote for them, I always use their titles, whether they're current or former. But would you mind if I call you Al?
Yes. No.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. Your producer asked me before. I said, call me Al.
Well, okay. All right, Al. So what inspired
I guess
you
doesn't
to
communicate with you very well.
No, they did. I just wanted the audience to know because they know me. They know me well.
You can call me
So-
anything you like, pretty much.
So, Al, what inspired the only former U.S. Senator currently on tour?
What inspires me now?
Well, what inspired you to do it?
Well, what inspired me to do the tour?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I love comedy. That's where I started. I actually never really did a single stand-up tour. I used to do comedy with Tom Davis, who we went to high school together, and we were two of the original SNL writers. We did 15 seasons there, not 3 decades, but we did it over 2 decades. We left for 5 and came back. So Tom and I toured as a team, but I've been a big fan of really great stand-ups all my life. And, people, there's a million of them, but people like Carlin and, Lenny Bruce and just Richard Pryor, all those people. And I really admire great stand-ups.
I do too.
And I started working out at a place called the Comedy Cellar in Greenwich Village about a year ago, and just trying to get my chops going. And then went on tour in September. I did 15 cities, did DC, did the Warner Theater down there, and about to go on to do 16 more cities starting in a week or so.
Wow, I love the fact that you went back to go, you said the Comedy Cellar, and to get your chops back. Did it take you longer than you expected to get your chops back?
Oddly, no. But I mean, I don't even know if it was chops back, but because I really not done a single. But I've been public speaking for a long time, and I've been fun. I was, so no, it was actually fun right away. And I had actually, before the pandemic, gone on the road a little bit, and that was more of a little bit of different format, more of a speech answering questions kind of thing. But this was really, I just seriously said, okay, you're doing stand-up, Al. Let's see if you can do that.
So then, Al, what material do you cover in this show, and how are you folding the stranger than fiction current events into your comedy?
Well, first of all, it's comedy, and so it's I'm people shouldn't come expecting a lot of just commentary. I'm trying to honor stand-up comedy, so it's about laughs. But I do talk a lot about uh, what's going on now in this country in terms of our governance. I think you're going to be asking me about the Senate and stuff like that. I do talk a lot about the people I served with and what that was like, and also, of course, about some of the conflicts that we're seeing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a mix of stuff.
All right, so let's just talk about it. So who do you talk about in your tour? Like, who really gets broiled?
Hey, Cruz. I have a thing called the Ted Cruz section of the show because there's so much to say. I have always said about Ted is that I probably like Ted Cruz more than most of my colleagues like Ted Cruz, and I hate Ted Cruz. So I just explain why. and, I talk about, I tell a number of stories, and they're all pretty unbelievable. There's a reason people don't like him. I mean, Lindsey Graham said if someone killed Ted Cruz on the floor, they could never get convicted, and they had a trial in the Senate, no one would convict them. And and he's kind of right. And
Right.
so I tell some pretty interesting stories about Ted.
And I knew this, that Ted Cruz takes up a lot of time in your set, in your tour. But who do you broil who most folks wouldn't think you would make a joke about them?
Well, I do joke about some of my Democratic colleagues, but it's nothing like
Well, sure,
Ted.
nothing like Ted Cruz.
It's more affectionate kind of stuff about them. I mean, I talk about Bernie having to, um, I've known Bernie for a long time. I campaigned for him when he was in the House, and I he sort of had the same stump speech for 30 years, which is, this country is run by the millionaires and the billionaires. And then I talk about the time he turned out he's a millionaire because he sold a number of, a number of bestsellers, not number one New York Times bestsellers like I have, but he's a millionaire. And then it was just about his time having to adjust from this country is run by the billionaires and multi-billionaires, and it was just having him try not to say millionaires. And that's when I remember he had that heart attack,
Mm-hmm.
November on the way to that, in the beginning of the 2020 cycle. And a lot of people would say to me, well, that's it for Bernie, I guess. Are you kidding? I said, Bernie has more energy than anyone I know. And I said, remember Cheney? He had like 12 heart attacks during the Bush administration. And he had 3 artificial hearts, 2 of which rejected him. So that's there you go. That's
See,
a
Al,
taste. A taste.
you got me to snort there in public.
Okay, well,
So Al,
that kind of snorting is fine in public.
listen, Al, as you well know, the intersection of comedy and politics can be fraught. Do you think we're overly sensitive today when it comes to some comedy or all comedy? Are we taking comedy too seriously?
Yeah, I mean, yes, people are way too sensitive about everything, and it's a problem. And what I think is kind of funny is Republicans complain about woke, and now they're going to actually make it possible for parents to sue teachers for in Florida. This is what
Hmm.
DeSantis wants to do for making their child feel discomfort.
Oh yeah.
And so you can't basically. I mean, this is obviously about critical race theory, which is not taught in K through 12. It's not taught in college. It's taught in law school, and it's just it's treating our kids. It's going to make it impossible to teach kids in Florida, which is going to disservice the kids. You know, when
Hmm.
I was growing up, when I was in school, I had right wing teachers, I had left wing teachers, I had teachers who were racist and anti Semitic. I had great teachers. I could tell the difference, I could deal with it. And, you have to be able to talk about this stuff. And I think people are just afraid to talk about things now. And
Hmm.
it's on both sides. It goes both ways, obviously.
Hmm. On that Florida bill, I wrote a column on Tuesday about the discomfort bill and how idiotic it
Yeah.
is, and they're trying to bubble wrap kids from being challenged about our nation's history. But let's move from comedy and talk about the situation that Whoopi Goldberg is in. And you recently came out in defense of Whoopi,
It
who,
wasn't
like
exactly
you,
it certainly wasn't in defense of what she said. I just said that,
right?
she I think she didn't really understand. She basically said that she didn't think, uh, the Holocaust was about race, and, of course, the Nazis, believed my people were a race, that Jews were a race, and this is actually part of if you look at what critical race theory is, it says that race is sort of a social phenomenon. You, it's what people impose on it. It's so in this country, Italians were once not quite white,
Right.
and you know what I mean, and now they are. And so all this is sort of in our heads, and I think that Whoopi got confused, and it was a dumb or ignorant thing to say, but I think she genuinely was apologetic, and I had
Yeah.
no problem with what they did at The View or ABC. 2 weeks off is doing a fine thing, I think. I don't know
Uh,
what their policy has been in the past on things like
right.
that.
So you agree with what ABC did in terms of suspending Whoopi Goldberg? I'm
Well,
wondering if you have any concern about what
I would have
that kind of
been fine if they didn't
suspension impact.
also. I would have been fine if they didn't. I know they had someone from the ADL on, or the head of the ADL on. I think that was a really good thing. And so I was just saying, I don't know what their policy has been
Right.
when hosts or other people on the show have made that kind of mistake.
Hmm. I don't know if you know this about me, but I went to Carleton College in
Oh,
Northfield,
really?
Minnesota.
Great
Yes,
school.
and it's a fabulous school, and I see you have Mr. Wellstone behind you, and Paul
Yeah,
Wellstone, the late
yeah,
senator from Minnesota, was one
yeah.
of my political science professors. That was my major.
He was amazing, wasn't he,
He
Paul?
really was.
Yeah, he is the reason I ran for the Senate was Paul, because Paul died in a plane crash, as you know, in
Mhm.
2002, and just about 2 weeks before that election, and Coleman ended up winning it. I won't get into some of the stuff that happened right before in terms of the memorial funeral forum, service forum, and how that was mischaracterized. But Norm Coleman, a few months after being in the Senate, was interviewed by Roll Call and um, said that he was a 99% improvement over Paul Wellstone. And that's when I said, who the hell is going to run against this guy. And that got it into my head, and I ended up clobbering him by 312 votes.
Right, and it took a while to certify that election, which happened in November 2008, and it was certified in what, June of 2009?
Yeah, right at the end of June. Now, I actually won the recount in January. I won the recount in time to be seated. The Republicans didn't want me there because I ended up being the 60th vote. So they did everything they could to stop me from getting there.
Right. So, Al, I have to ask you about, you know, what led to you leaving the Senate. And it's been 4 years since you resigned. In 2019, 7 current and former senators told the New Yorker that they regretted forcing you out of office. You've also said that you regret resigning. Why?
Well, I think for those 7, now there are 9 of them. I've had 2 since publicly apologize, which is unusual. You don't get 9 senators publicly apologizing for something. They didn't give me, they made it impossible for me to get due process. And I think if you read the New Yorker, I don't know, did you read the New Yorker article?
I did not read the New Yorker article.
Okay, well, I would hope people would, who are interested in this, because it puts a lot of perspective on it. No one investigated this. No one at the Washington Post investigated it. No one at the New York Times investigated. No one did any investigation of this at all. And I had 36 of my colleagues demand they leave, and I didn't get due process, and it was a pretty awful experience for me and my family. And I would urge people, and I would, Jane Mayer, whom you know, right? One of the great investigative reporters in our country, actually did an investigation. And one of the people who apologized since was Dick Durbin, and he apologized as soon as he read the article. And people who are interested in this, like yourself, really should read that.
Okay, I will do that. Of course, we're talking about your resignation over allegations of sexual harassment. I want to read something that feminist author Laura Kipnis said about the 2017 #MeToo fallout. That quote, "There was failed distinction making and political expediency and the impossibility of sorting motives from facts. That's what's starting to get unraveled now." I'd love your thoughts about how you are unraveling the Me Too movement and how this has shaped your life the last 4 years.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's very complicated, and but let's say that that's pretty accurate, and that this is very, very difficult for me and for my family, and I do appreciate the 9 who've come to me and apologized. Those are public. I've had others apologize to me and won't go public. And I think a lot of people come up to me all the time and say that was ridiculous. And I just, I don't want to discuss it here right now. How's that?
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. All I do is ask questions. You can answer them or not answer them. Now, of course, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand was the one who led that effort to get you to leave the Senate. And you recently said that you would not run for Gillibrand's seat in the Senate. But this leads to a Twitter question that came in that asks, "Are you going to run again? Do you have it in your bones or in your blood to jump back into the political arena and run for elective office again?"
I don't know. I certainly love my time in the Senate. I loved the job. I got a lot done. I was able to accomplish things I couldn't accomplish anywhere else, I don't think. So, yeah, it would be tempting to try to do that again.
At some point.
Yeah.
perhaps.
I'm only 70.
Okay.
So I've got, let's see, Grassley's running for re-election.
So you've got all the time in the world.
I guess I do.
to
Yeah.
run again.
You know that when someone's 87 and they won't stand up again, even though he denounced Trump early on, and then he hugged him on the stage, you know that if he won't kind of go down on principle at 87, he's not going to do it probably any other time.
So we've gotten to my list of questions here that was getting into political stuff. We talked about the discomfort bill in Florida. You jumped ahead on that, but you're a former Politico. What grade would you give President Biden?
I think grading people is kind of silly. Asking the question, perfectly valid.
Okay, all right. So you're not gonna answer the question. What do you so don't grade him.
Look.
What do you think of how he's done so far? It's been a year and a month. Almost.
Well, he's had some ups and downs. What I hope is that by November he'll have accomplished a lot of things that, including a lot of the elements of Build Back Better. And because I think that there's been a little bit of a disservice, and it's been all around in terms of, especially in the media, instead of I think the Washington media does this a lot, which is it gets into inside baseball and horse race and doesn't cover what the content of these bills. So what I would suggest now for the Senate is for Chuck Schumer and for the rest of my Democratic colleagues and former colleagues there is to put the elements of Build Back Better onto the floor, at least the ones that Manchin and Sinema, or at least would consider backing. For example, Manchin has said he is for expanded pre-K, universal pre-K. That would be a great thing. Americans before that. You put that on the floor, Americans want that. And if Republicans vote against it, if we don't get 60 votes, we put it in a reconciliation package, but at least Americans know what we're fighting for. The same on, extending or subsidies for childcare. That would be wildly popular. In Europe, the average country subsidizes the average kid $14,000 for childcare. In the United States, we do $500. And that would be wildly popular. It also would make sure that people could go to work, that moms could go to work or dads could go to work, and actually would help maybe bring down a little bit of the inflation on salaries and wages, because more people would be able to go out into the workforce.
So Al,
there's a whole bunch of stuff like this, getting costs down on prescription drugs, on insulin, doing on child tax credit. My God, if you put that out there, and I don't understand why we just don't put one after the other out there so the American people can see what the elements of this are. Because if they did, we could pass this stuff, and I wish it had been done sooner. I wish that some of this stuff, people could see the results of it before November. But I think these people will see what Democrats are for, and it will help us a lot in November.
So Al, they say time flies when you're having fun, and time has flown. We've got maybe about 3 minutes left, but
I wasn't having
one
more while.
Oh,
now I am.
Okay. All right. So Al, the last question. The last question is another Twitter question that has come in from Miriam E. Tucker. She asks a question that was going to be my final question, and I think a lot of people are wondering, and it's this. Al, has there been discussion of you hosting SNL or possibly even returning to the cast? And then I have another
I was
question.
never in the cast. I was a featured player over. I was there for so long that people in their brains think I was the cast member, but I was what was called a featured player.
Mhm.
And so I don't think that's going to happen. I think that I'm too old to be a cast member now. And also, they have a pretty big cast and a pretty good cast, and you know, I don't think that's in the cards.
All right, now, and here is the final question, and
Okay.
her question didn't go where I thought it was going, but this one does. Before
Okay.
your tour kicked off, you said that you wanted your audience. I'm sorry, no, not that one. There are rumors. This is the question. There are rumors that um, rumors about Lorne Michaels retiring. Lorne Michaels, the legendary and longtime executive producer of Saturday Night Live. Would you want to go back to Saturday Night Live as executive producer?
I don't think so. It's a very that might be a pretty hard and thankless job taking Lauren's shoes at this point. I also think there's other people probably who have been doing that and been around that. Uh, you know, like Seth Meyers, although he might not, he probably wouldn't want to do it because he's got his own great show. But there are people that are working there now in some capacity as producers. So that's not. I don't think that's in the cards either.
But if they came to you and said, hey, we'd like to have a discussion, would you take that meeting?
I'd say, come on, how much? What are we talking about? What are we talking about, guys? I'm probably the only one who can do it. Yeah, I'd have a different negotiating posture than I just had. And I would
Right.
ask you not to let that out. Let that people see that. I
Oh,
was
okay.
live.
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
really,
we'll cut
really
that
shot
part
myself in the foot there on that negotiation.
out. Well, Al Franken, former senator from Minnesota, now on your quote, the only former U.S. senator currently on tour. Thank you so much for coming to Capehart on Washington Post Live.
Oh, well, thank you, Jonathan.
Oh, and I should say you have your own podcast as well, the Al Franken podcast. And thank you for joining us. To check out what interviews we have coming up, head to WashingtonPostLive.com. Once again, I'm Jonathan Capehart, opinion writer for the Washington Post. Thanks for watching Capehart on Washington Post Live.